Welcome to the IonaHoops.com podcast with your host, Guy Flatico.
Hey there, it's Season 2, Episode 29 of the IonaHoops.com podcast, and this offseason has been anything but boring thus far for Iona fans. You all know about our commits by now, and we're going to learn more about a couple of them later in the episode from folks who know them best. That said, more roster moves have taken place as takes on a whole new meaning, and there's lots of other news too, as we will see in what I can only call an Iona bonanza.
Ionas.
You know things are crazy when you lose a coach to Casey Stanley is leaving New Rochelle to return to his former school, Arkansas State. Of course, Casey was a friend of this podcast since its inception, until Patino put the kibosh on his appearances. Gael Nation will miss you, Casey. But that wasn't the only Iona lost to. Shooting guard Ryan Myers also entered recently, and Myers' outside shot was a lifesaver often for Iona these past 2 years. We're going to miss his experience in the backcourt, I think, in this upcoming season. Good luck, Ryan.
Ionas.
Before Casey Stanley and Ryan Myers hit, we have seen 3 Gaels enter in search of a new opportunity. At the moment, Trey James is the only departing Gael staying at the Division I level, as he'll be traveling to Robert Morris of the Horizon League. Last year, RMU was one of the weakest defensive teams in the country, and they play at a much slower tempo than Iona, so Trey should really help out their program. Jordan Wilde went to JUCO route. He'll be going to traditional power Coffeyville Community College, and Robert Brown is headed to Texas Wesleyan of the NAIA. And time will tell where Ryan Myers ends up. Good luck to all 4. Once a Gael, always a Gael.
Ionas.
Well, Rick Pitino didn't wait too long to fill the open spot on his staff left by Casey's departure. UConn Director of Player Development Talik Brown joins Pitino's crew alongside the Alphabet Man and Ricky Johns. You might remember Brown was captain of UConn's 2004 National Championship team. Well, he's been the DPD at UConn the past 4 seasons and now joins Iona as a coach. Welcome to Gael Nation Talik.
Ionas.
Just when you thought we were done recruiting from, we land another transfer. This time it's point guard Anton Brookshire, a Missouri native and former top 100 recruit who played his freshman season at Mizzou. The 6'2 Brookshire had an uneven campaign for the Tigers, but he was sought after upon announcing his transfer a month ago, with interest from schools such as Notre Dame, Florida, Wake Forest, St. Louis, St. Mary's, and others. Brookshire appeared in 18 games this past season, averaging 9 minutes per appearance and 1.5 points per game on the whole. The pass-first guard battled a wrist injury during the second half of the season, and as a result fell short of expectations a little bit that come with being a top 100 player and a 4-star recruit coming per ESPN coming out of high school. But a fresh start may be just what he needs. We're going to learn a bit more about Anton later in this episode.
Ionas.
The MAC is back to 11 teams. Monmouth's departure, as well as King Rice, the tool, to the CAA left MAC fans everywhere wondering where the league would turn to fill the void, with the hopes of programs such as Vermont or an A-10 bottom feeder to bolster the league's suddenly hot image. Hey, thanks, St. Peter's. Enser and company announced recently that Mount St. Mary's out of the NEC would be joining the league to the dissatisfaction of many. The program does have 6 NEC titles and NCAA bids since 1995, tops in the league, but the program hasn't finished with a Ken Palm better than 209 in the past 10 years, and the Emmitsburg, Maryland-based school presents another bit of a road trip for other programs in the league. Now, Monmouth did not have an overwhelming reputation of success when it joined the MAC, but the Hawks were one of the premier programs in the league during its tenure here. Whether we see Mount St. Mary's make that kind of jump remains to be seen, but no question, this addition to the MAC leaves Iona fans wanting more.
Ionas.
And speaking of Iona fans wanting more, a recent report on the website College Hoops Today noted that the Atlantic 10 is open to adding a 16th member to its monstrous league. and that reopened the floodgates for more Iona to the A10 talk. Of course, the piece references Rick Pitino's out-of-context commentary by Iona's status in the MAC and noted that the league has not shied away from having multiple teams in the same market, hearing you, Philadelphia, for those thinking the Gaels would not be a candidate due to Fordham's longstanding presence now in the conference, such as it is. All that said, it should be noted that any sort of move to a league of this nature would require not only a financial commitment from the school, but from the fans as well. It remains to be seen whether Iona is actually considered a candidate by the league anyway. But for those dreaming bigger, get those checkbooks ready if that happens.
Iona, Iotas.
And speaking of the A10, it was recently reported that Iona will be playing St. Bonaventure at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn on December 11th as part of the Hall of Fame Classic, the same event in Brooklyn Iona was involved in last year. Thus far, Hofstra and UMass are also on the card, with 2 more matchups to come. Coach Pitino mentioned Barclays as a destination during his Zoom call, now infamous Zoom call, with Iona fans and local media a few weeks back, and here we are with a nice set of games in Brooklyn on a Sunday in December. See you all at Broccolino's again. And with all those Iotas now out of the way, you'd think it'd be quiet on the recruiting front, but not so much. We now bring you the offer roundup.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With the roster still being tweaked for the 2022-23 season, Rick Pitino and staff are looking to continue the younger recruiting trend with the latest reported offers handed out. The Gaels recently reportedly offered class of 2023 power forward J.P. Estrella out of South Portland, Maine, by way of Brewster Academy, a big that runs the floor well and can play an inside-outside game style, nice shooting touch, tough rebounder, shot blocker, good footwork and hands. He's got hops and athleticism. Offers from Boston College, Cal, Harvard, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Marquette, Maryland, UMass, Miami, ND, Penn State, Providence, Syracuse, Tennessee, Virginia Tech. You get the idea. There's a lot more. Iona's hitting that class of 2024 hard as well. We're going to start with Tyler Betsy, a 6'7" shooting guard, small forward out of Windsor, Connecticut, not too far from me. Played his high school for Windsor High and AAU for the New York Wrens. It's a great handle, knockdown threes, a high percentage, a mature, under control game, a high IQ, tough defender. Offers from St. John's, TCU, Manhattan, Creighton, Seton Hall, Nebraska. The Gaels have also reported offer Nate Gurengamba, Gurengamba, a 6'5" shooting guard, combo guard out of Washington, D.C. versus via the Kent School. Played AAU for Team Takeover. Prep Hoops ranked him as the 16th best player in the D.C. area. He's a disruptive defender, and he can get to the hoop, and he can score. Strong player with a high IQ. Offers from Maryland, URI, New Mexico State, Rutgers, Seton Hall, Virginia Tech, Samford, and NJIT. And we've also reportedly offered Austin Schwartz, a 6'5" combo guard out of the Concord, North Carolina area, and the Cannon School. This kid is just starting to make a name for himself. Very good body control, good handle, great shooter, tough defensively. Offers from smaller group schools, Houston Baptist, Appy State, and Radford. Expect bigger schools to start reaching out in the coming months. Thank you to Iona 86 on the Iona message board for that huge scouting report. He's, of course, one of our beacons of recruiting news on the message board, as is, of course, Gale Force or Sharky, depending where you see his name. So shout out to both of those guys for always being on top of recruiting. And now that we've caught you up on the players who we're pursuing, let's take a deeper dive into a couple players we've already landed with a couple of folks that know them best. We're going to visit with Wyatt Wheeler, a beat writer for the Springfield News Leader in Missouri, for the scoop on Mizzou transfer Anton Brookshire. And Justin Brantley, National Recruiting Director for SUV TV Sports Network, is the man to talk to about Cruz Davis. You guys are going to remember that when he committed a few weeks back, a great interview was shared with Davis on his commitment on the Iona message board. Well, Justin was the interviewer in that interview, and now he's here with us to share his insight on the freshman. So let's get to it. Well, in recent days, Iona picked up yet another transfer player in Anton Brookshire from Mizzou. And well, we don't know anything about him here at Iona, so we wanted to bring in somebody who does. And here we're bringing in Wyatt Wheeler, who is a sports writer for the Springfield News Leader in Missouri. Wyatt covered Anton in high school and obviously followed him in his first year at Mizzou. And I'm sure we'll continue to follow him now that he's going to be under Rick Pitino in New Rochelle. Wyatt, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to talk about Anton.
So give us a taste of what his high school career was like and how his recruiting went at that stage and the reputation he received back then as a player.
Oh man, he was a 4-year starter at the highest level of high school, starting point guard all 4 years. And he just he was one of the better players from the second he stepped on the floor. As a freshman, he was landing some Division I offers already, local school, Missouri State. Just some interest from around. He's from Milwaukee. Originally moved here to live with his uncle, who ran his AAU program and was his coach and everything, trainer. And so he had some Milwaukee connections, but really just improved every single year. It was a lot of fun. I think this is the one kid I've covered who I've gotten to know the best, just from freshman year to senior year, been able to just cover their story and watch them grow up. And Anton's just a great kid. I've grown to love the kid. Just a great leader on the court, just a good kid off the court. Has been through a lot of stuff in his life that not a lot of kids his age should be going through, with passing of his mother his junior year, right when they were in the middle of postseason ball. Never missed a practice, never missed a game, led his team to the semifinals, and then it was canceled because of COVID. And then they come back the next year. Another one of two of his teammates from AAU ball move into the area where Anton goes to high school, forms one of the better teams, more talented teams to ever come through Southwest Missouri. And they go on to win a state championship. So it was really cool to see his career in high school end like that. 4-year starter, of course, all state a few of those years. Top 100 prospect in the country according to ESPN. He ended his career as the area's top 3-point shooter of all time. So Kickapoo High School's all-time leading scorer. And that's where a guy, they've had some really good players come through that program. So, including Anthony Tolliver, NBA name there. So
nice.
So really, just a really good kid that really matured every single year on the court. You saw his game just take different steps every single time. Has been a part of some of the best games I've ever covered, just going head to head with some really good teams. It's pretty proud Southwest Missouri basketball area. And to see him lead that team, which is, really, it's one of the first thoughts you have when you think about Southwest Missouri basketball. It was really cool to see him grow up and be a leader of that team and end up winning a championship.
So then he's a highly rated player nationally. And then he shows up at Mizzou, which is great, going to the big in-state school, after playing high school ball in Missouri. And yet, things just didn't go right. I know he was injured, but just didn't have the freshman year everybody was expecting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know about freshman year everybody was expecting, because I don't think he was really supposed to be thrown in really quickly. I think he needed to add some muscle, add a little more size to play at the SEC level. He was offered by Mizzou right before his senior year, and they had a great relationship with Conzo Martin. Conzo Martin's a beloved former Missouri State head coach. So he's really loved in Southwest Missouri. So he had that familiarity with him. If you've ever heard, I don't know if anybody's ever heard a bad thing about Conzo Martin. He got to know Conzo pretty quickly, and I believe he committed to Mizzou about 2 days after he was offered. So he jumped on that as quick as he could. had a high school teammate go with him as well, in Trevin Brazil, who has since transferred to Arkansas, one of the higher ranked, high ceiling guys, just kind of a late bloomer there in the country. So he'll be playing on a pretty loaded Razorbacks team this year. But Anton was always looked at as the star of Kickapoo. But he goes on to Mizzou, thinking that you probably need to add some size, but Mizzou just had a really tough year from the jump. Lots of blowout, lots of times they were blown out where they were playing with different lineups and stuff, to where Anton got some time in the starting lineup at a few points during the year, just mixing and matching things all around, to where it never really settled in, and ended up leading to the firing of Conzo Martin up in Columbia. Anton was one of the first guys to enter the portal right after that happened. Anton didn't wait around for the new head coach to be hired. Didn't stick around to see. He just wanted to go get in there as quick as he could. Left the door open for Mizzou, but you rarely see those kids go back to when they say they'll leave the door open. And had some injuries here and there throughout the season, but yeah, it didn't go the way he expected it to. That he probably expected it to, but Mizzou really just had a really rough season, to where when you have a coaching change and all that, it just made sense for Anton to enter the portal.
Yeah, and that obviously is to Iona's benefit. But I mean, I saw some of the names that were associated with him, and since he went to the portal, which was probably a good month ago or so, I think. And there's some big schools in there. In your mind, why would and from what you know of him, because you know him well, why would he choose a tiny little school like Iona, Patino or not, over some of the bigger schools that were on his list?
Well, he got a phone call from Patino. I mean, that's where it starts, man. I mean, that still means something to a lot of these kids, whether you want to go into some of the controversies of Patino's past or not. But that name is a champion. That name is somebody who's developed NBA players. And they've had success already over there at Iona, and they're continuing to build that. They're able to sell, hey, you could play at these different places up in the Northeast. So they were on a plane pretty quickly to go on a visit up there. And he really connected well with that staff. They sold them on what he could do. This kid's not afraid of putting in the work. I've seen how much he works throughout his 4 years. This is I don't know how much of a social life he has, because he's in there so often with his uncle. So no, I think he really connected with that staff. The only thing that I wondered was just like, hey, you're moving away from Southwest Missouri for really the first. You've had friends around you your entire basketball playing career, whether that's all these AAU guys, high school teammates, you even go to Mizzou with a high school teammate. He's just like, yep, that's different, and that's gonna be a challenge. But I always thought I've had a good personality where I can make friends. So and I've seen that before too. So I mean, it's a big move for him, but I think he accepts the challenge. I think that family really likes knowing that he's gonna have the top notch coaching from Patino. And I think once they heard that name, when they were sorting through the different schools, that really jumped out to them. And after a visit, they didn't take too long to accept. And I had a feeling going into their visit that they were just going there to look around and figure out what apartment he'd be in, because I think they were that excited to possibly play for a coach like Patino.
Mm. And Patino, you don't play unless you defend, and you have to always give 100% on defense, or you just don't see the floor. And we've already seen that at Iona for the last couple of years. We've seen what he can do on offense. Can you tell us about his defense?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on the size there. You want to see him get a little stronger, be able to move a little bit with these top athletes, but I mean, he's going down a little bit from an SEC, seeing some of the best players, NBA players in the country, every single night in the winter. to the level Iona plays. I'm not sure about what Iona's. I'm sure Iona puts together a pretty good non-conference schedule. But I think once he gets a bit of that, I think with how much he works on both sides of the court, I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for him.
All right. And last question, Iona fans, of course, we in this era of the portal, it's hard to just get attached to a kid. Why will Iona fans get attached to him?
I think his story is what's gotten me attached to him. And just the way he perseveres through everything in life. He was growing up with his mother in Milwaukee, taking care of her when she got lupus. And then his mom said to her brother to come get him, and to take him to Southwest Missouri from Milwaukee. So that's a ton to put on a kid. And just the way he's responded to every little bit of adversity in his life has just been incredible to watch. Whether that's whether that's losing a game, whether that's leading a team to a state championship, I think he has an amazing story, and that's because of the way he's handled himself in every little part of his life. And that's why I love the kid, and I'm his biggest fan, man. So if anybody can look at all that, read through some of his life journey, and get to know who this kid is, I think anybody would fall in love with this kid.
Well, Wyatt, I really appreciate you coming on and just educating us on what we can expect from Anton when he joins the program. We're excited to have him. He looks like a super talent. We're always excited to get players like him at Iona and at our level. You've just been here to educate us, and we really appreciate you stopping by.
Oh, no problem. Big Gaels fan now. I'll be rooting for Iona. Anywhere this kid goes, I'll be rooting for him. So happy to talk to you guys about him.
Well, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, again, with so many new players on Iona, we wanted to bring in some experts here to share what they know about them and educate Iona fans on what we actually have coming in. And right now I'm welcoming in Justin Brantley. He's a former prep school director, and he's the national recruiting director and analyst for SUV TV Sports Network. And he is the man to talk to about Cruz Davis. You guys are going to remember that when he committed a couple weeks back, there was a great interview shared on Twitter and on the Iona message board. Well, this is the interviewer of Davis in that interview. So nobody knows Cruz Davis as well as Justin Brantley. Justin, welcome to our program, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'd say Cruz is one of those guys that I've had a pleasure being able to watch grow and develop, and not just from a basketball standpoint, but getting to know his dad quite a bit and having some conversations with him and learning more about kind of Cruz's background and the things that drive him. He became one of my favorites to watch. And as analysts in the media space, we're not supposed to have favorites, but it's hard not to root for certain kids, and Cruz is one of those guys.
Yeah, well, before we dive into Cruz a bit more, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've spent the better half of the last 2 decades in the grassroots basketball space in one way, shape, form, or fashion. Started from a training perspective and helping student athletes develop and reach their goals from that point, and kind of navigated from there into, as you spoke earlier, I was an administrator, was the athletic director at Spire Academy, and got to see things from a completely different vantage point, and be able to help guys kind of understand the business side of it a little bit more than and when I say the business side, at the prep level, it's a business. It's not your normal high school. I've got first period through fifth period, and then maybe I might have an hour to put up some shots. But having student athletes that all really are committed and dedicated to playing at that Division I level. I spent time in with the EYBL program, All Ohio Red. I've spent time with Adidas programs as well as Under Armour. So, I've been able to see multiple different perspectives and landscapes within grassroots basketball. And I think that I've got a pretty good eye for, identifying guys that not only have what it takes to be successful on the court, but have those things that transcend that 94 feet of competition. One of the things that I'm working on is, launching a firm that will work with student athletes on their NIL. And that's been a big part of, this last year for me, is understanding, having a better, ability to not only understand the space, but help these student athletes capitalize on that, and put them in the best position to be successful.
Before we do this again, before we get to Cruz, I want to ask you more about NIL. Of course, it's been the hot topic. Everybody wants to talk about this college basketball season and how much it's impacting the game. I want, as somebody who's really been diving deep into it, can you tell us what you think about all that?
Yeah, I think that, depending on who you talk to, they'll say NIL is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's really, revolutionizing the game. And some people will say, hey, NIL is the devil, and it's hurting and killing the game. And I think that the reality is NIL hasn't changed anything. It's just kind of unveiled and, kind of shown us who people really are, right? It's hard to say, hey, my focus is on finding the right fit, which is buzzword. And most kids say when they're going through the recruiting process, I want the right fit. But then they turn around and, will choose a situation based off of, there's an NIL situation over here that makes more sense financially. And so I think that those kids were going to be that way anyways, right? Like, those are guys that, their focal point is, I want to get to not only to the highest level, but I want to, find the best financial situation for me. And then you have guys like Cruz, who, his biggest thing was about finding the right fit. And there's a lot of guys out there like him, that I don't think it impacts or affects having this NIL within the marketplace. I don't think that it's a negative factor. I think that it's just an added bonus or added benefit where, they have an opportunity to, not stress out about calling home and saying, hey, mom and dad, I need an extra $100 this week because I want to take this girl to the movies, or, I want to be able to order food. Or let's take it another step beyond that. I'm big on life after the game. And that's something I'll talk about a little bit with Cruz. His dad's told me multiple times, hey, Cruz wants to be a lawyer. And that's something that, when you think about it, you think about the cost of education and you think about life after basketball. Imagine the opportunity to use your on the court abilities and your name, image, and likeness to start to build a little bit of a nest egg to be able to afford law school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's famously known, they talk about Tom Izzo and his ability, when he was coaching, when he was first starting out, he had the luxury of staying at home with his parents. So, it didn't matter that he wasn't making any money, right? Well, that's often a barrier to entry for a lot of players or a lot of people from my community that, they don't have families that can say, hey, you know what? Don't worry about bringing in income for the next 10 years. You can go volunteer here and, GA here and do this here. So NIL, I think, gives some of those guys that have bigger picture goals, an ability to put themselves in a position and position themselves for success beyond the game of basketball, football, whatever sport they're competing in. Just gives them a little bit more of a runway post competition, in my opinion.
Well, thank you for that refreshing take. NIL seems to have developed into a 4-letter word online. So thank you for bringing that side of it to us. All right, so let's talk about Cruz. Talk about his high school career, his AAU career, in terms of how he developed as a player and the recruiting process for him as you know it.
Absolutely. So, I first heard about Cruz. There's a guy in Dallas who does a phenomenal job. And, I think everybody throughout the country should be following him. His name's Kellen Buffington. He on Twitter, he's TB5 reports. They call him Buff. He runs events called, like, his last one, his biggest one is Who Wants the Smoke? It's every year, it's out in Dallas. And the best of the best compete there, right? And that's where, I first heard about Keontae George. I first heard about Anthony Black. And that's the first place I heard about Cruz Davis. And I was really excited going into this school year because I said, okay, he's playing at I School Louisville. He's going to be aligned with, Keontae George, who I saw Keontae play a little bit when he was younger, and just saw the maturation and growth of his game. And I was like, man, that might be the best backcourt in the country. And then I saw, I saw Keontae end up at IMG. And I said, okay, well, I still want to check out iSchool Louisville. And then I saw Cruz end up at Huntington Prep, which was for I'm sure for fans back home in Dallas, they were a little bit disappointed to see that. But for me, it was exciting because at SUV we had multiple Huntington Prep games on our slate. I've known Arkell Bruce, the head coach at Huntington Prep.
Mm-hmm.
I've known him for a long time. Dating back to my Spire days and even before, seeing, the talented guys that he's had come through, NBA prospect after NBA prospect after NBA prospect, including, Miles Bridges, right? Like that's probably one of the biggest names, but Huntington Prep is known for just producing great ball players. So I was excited to see kind of, how that impacted Cruz's growth and development. So that's where it started for me. And then I saw Cruz, I brought on SUV TV, I had, I want to say 5 of his games this year. So I had the opportunity to, see him in different lights against different levels of competition. Beyond that, I got to see not only, the great games, but I got to see when the team struggled a little bit and how he responded and how he overcame adversity. There was some movements within the roster. They had Trenton Flowers there, and Trenton Flowers left and went out to Sierra Canyon to play alongside Bronny, and seeing how Cruz stepped up again. So, it was great to see. I don't like to compare players to this college player that plays their position or this pro player that played their position. I like to compare them to who they were the last time I saw them. And that was a lot easier with Cruz because I had an opportunity to see him often. And for me, he always seemed to get better each time I watched him.
Okay. So now he's blown up as a player and now the colleges are calling. How did his recruitment process go in your mind in terms of the schools that were reaching out? And then how does Iona get in the picture and how does he make that decision?
Yeah, from my understanding, and I want to be very transparent and clear that I had absolutely nothing to do with Cruz's recruiting process. It wasn't me that was reaching out to college coaches. Like Cruz would reach out and ask for film and things like that, and I would help him where I could. But Cruz did a great job managing his process. Between himself, Coach Arkell Bruce at Huntington Prep, his family, they did a great job. And Cruz's dad's extremely involved. He's an amazing guy, and the conversations I had with him, Cruz was committed to Oregon State. They went on a visit to Oregon State and they watched a practice, and just throughout that process, it just didn't feel like home, right? And I don't think it was anything negative. I just think that Cruz understood the importance of fit. He understood the importance of being in the right setting, in the right system, and around the right coaches and the right guys. And I think that played a major role in eventually, choosing Iona. He looked at, a legendary coach that has had extreme success at the guard position, right? He looked at a fan base that, absolutely loves their team and loves their players. He looked at, a school academically, that fit what his goals were. He's somebody that says, hey, I want to be a lawyer, right? And I understand, a college degree is a college degree to some people. To me, it's important to put yourself in a position where when you graduate from college, you're competitive for what you want beyond, the game of basketball. So I think all of those things played a factor for Cruz. And I don't think he rushed at all. He decommitted in the fall early and he took his time. And I know Iona was one of the ones that came in hard. I know that Coach Pitino was serious about recruiting him. I saw Coach Pitino out recruiting quite a few guys this year, in a year where everybody was saying, hey, nobody's worried about high school guys. I think back to, watching, Pitino sitting courtside watching Angel Montas from Life Christian Academy early. He was one of the first ones that I saw evaluating the kid when I'm like, hey, why isn't this kid's name bigger, right? And then Illinois and some other guys got involved. But, Pitino was really serious about getting out on the trail and identifying these high school guys and made them a priority. And I think that was something that was important to Cruz as well. I think Cruz, saw the landscape of transfers and guys kind of, you know, waiting that out and going to the portal first. And Cruz wanted to go somewhere where he's going to get an opportunity to get on the floor, and he's going to get an opportunity to be developed, and not, not a program that's completely focused on the transfer ranks.
Yeah, and Pitino has said repeatedly, he obviously he wants to bring in 4-star talent to a place like Iona, which is, I won't say impossible, but it's pretty hard to do. But beyond that, he's always said, I'm looking for people who can play my system. Why is Cruz a fit in this system?
I think Cruz is a fit because of Arkel Bruce. And the reason why I say that, I've watched Arkel coach for years. And in this day and age, a lot of, like I said, handling adversity is one of the biggest and best attributes that a point guard can have. Being coachable is the next one. Having pace is the next one. Understanding time and space and how to win and being a winner and wanting to win. All of those are key traits that a point guard must have. And Arkel Bruce has instilled a lot of that. And Cruz, a lot of it was already there, but Arkel really took it to another level. And Arkel coached him hard. And I think that prepared him for a coach like Coach Pitino, right? Pitino is going to demand greatness from his guys, as he should. And I think that's something that Cruz probably was looking for and saying, hey, you know what? Like, I want to go somewhere that they're not going to accept mediocrity. They want me to be great. And I think that, so it's a fit both ways. I think that, Cruz can be coached hard and will be coached hard, and isn't going to be one of those freshmen that you have to worry about, okay, man, is he going to run out of here because, things didn't quite go his way, or, adversity struck, or, he was maybe catered to a little bit too much in high school, and now he gets to college and the coach is hard on him. And we see that in this landscape. Yep. That's not something that you have to worry about with a Cruz Davis. And I think that's why he fits that system that Coach Pitino is building. I think that, a lot of people look at basketball and we're transitioning as a buzzword, positionless basketball. And I agree to that to some regards. I think that it is positionless outside of your point guard. You have to have a point guard. And, I've seen Cruz, I say all the time, he's in cruise control because he's never sped up. He's always calm. He's that calming force on the floor. But he's that guy that if you need 25 that night, he can give you 25. He has great vision. He understands, hey, I've got guys on the wings that are, that are open. I'm going to find them. I'm not going to dribble the air out of the ball like you see with a lot of, young point guards. So, all of those things I think fit the system there at Iona and fit, Coach Pitino's coaching style.
Well, we are really excited to have him. Iona has a great mix of experience and newcomers, and Cruz is going to come in a great situation here. Like you said, he can compete for minutes right away, but he's also got already some players who are a little bit older ahead of him on that roster, so that if he's not quite ready right away, he has people to learn from and get better and battle every day in practice and just become that player that you're talking about, that you've seen. So we are excited about him, and we are excited that you joined us today to talk about this. And really, I learned a lot more about him today. I'm looking forward to seeing him and the rest of the team out there. And I think he's going to be a great fit in this program.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and I'd like to end on this note. Cruz comes from a great family, and the conversations I've had with his father have been amazing. So not only is the Iona family getting a great point guard, and getting a great student athlete that's going to represent the brand the right way, a future lawyer who is going to be one of those alum that you'll look at and be able to be proud of, but you're also getting a family that loves and supports their child and is going to love and support the program. Between his dad, his mom, his brother, he has people that, truly believe him and support him. He has a village behind him. So Iona's not just getting, a great player, they're getting a great family. And I think that's something that a lot of times, whether it be recruiting sites or blog sites or whatever, a lot of the focus and emphasis is on that player and what they bring to the table. And I think that it's even more important what that support system looks like, because that's what keeps players home, right? When a player's having a rough time, if the support system's not strong, guess what? He's transferring. Right. When a player's, when the NIL conversation, like you said before, there's a school saying, hey, we got a little bit more money for you. when the support system's not strong and the people don't have all of the right intentions and motives, you lose a kid like that. And that's not what you're facing here. You're getting a young man that comes from an amazing family, that understands the value of commitment, understands the value of being a part of something bigger than himself, understands sacrifice, and understands just being a part of a unit, and being loyal to that unit. And I think that you're going to get somebody that you'll be proud of, not just to wear the jersey, but you'll be proud to represent the university. And I think that that's more important, far more important than what the young man can do, in two halves of basketball. It's what he can bring to the school community.
Well, that sounds perfect. And we always want to see kids like that. I think in this era, of transfers, you don't really get connected to a player. Here we are with a kid who's going to be here for 4 years, and we can all feel like he's going to be part of our family too. So that's awesome. Thank you, Justin, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you again down the line.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. I want to thank both of our guests for joining us this episode of the podcast. A lot of news there happened in the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's going to quiet down now. Who knows? You never know around here. It's Gale Nation, and the excitement never stops. Until next time, go Gaels.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the IonaHoops.com podcast. This podcast is a production of IonaHoops.com and its publisher Guy Filatico. The opinions shared during this podcast are those of Guy Filatico, IonaHoops.com, and any featured guests. This podcast is not affiliated with Iona College Athletics or the college itself. Thank you for supporting IonaHoops.com.